This is Ihsan Hines from MBKCares. I want to welcome you to the latest episode of Wellness Wednesday. Tonight's discussion is going to be centered around the theme of back to school. So many of you have been following along our journey of discussions about mental health, wellness, and just ways to improve our quality of life. Last school year, we were impacted by the quarantine period due to the pandemic, which shifted our school, our educational system, and our households in many ways. So we wanted to talk about that transition back into school with some things that we've learned, some things that we're still trying to figure out, and just try to see if we could discuss some healthy solutions so that we can have successful, productive years from the standpoint of the administrators and the students and the community as well, because many parents have become teachers this year. So we welcome our panel, we welcome our Facebook audience, our YouTube audience, whatever platform you're consuming this material or this content tonight, we appreciate you. We welcome your questions in the group chat option on Facebook or in the comment section on Facebook. Please feel free to post questions or comments. We welcome them, we encourage them. So I'm going to introduce our panel tonight, and I'm going to have them each say a little bit about themselves. I'm excited about being able to speak to them and being able to hear from them, and I hope that you are as well. So I'm going to start off with introducing Chikenya Akpunonu. We have Louie Ackelsberg, Serita Reels, Maya Dixon, and Kenneth Glover. At this time, I'm going to go around and let each one of them talk a little bit about who they are and what they bring to this conversation before we get into the panel discussion. Chikenya also is known as Kiki, so I'm going to let you start off.
All right, my name is Chikenya Akpunonu. I am a public health major, got my degree in 2019, and my focus is mental health and communication.
Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Louie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Louie. I am from Germantown in the northwest section of Philly. I went to Philadelphia Public School, 264 graduating class of Central High School. And now I am a social worker and therapist at George Washington High School, far in the Northeast, about as far away as you can get and still be in the city.
Welcome. Maya?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Dixon. I'm 15, and I go to Cardinal O'Hara High School in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and I love basketball.
Welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
Serita?
Hello, everyone. My name is Serita. I work at LaSalle University, where I manage a grant that's focused on suicide prevention. I also provide oversight of the university's initiatives to address basic needs for our students and adjunct faculty in the public health program.
Welcome. And Kenneth?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Glover. I work for the School District of Philadelphia, where I support 15 schools with climate and culture.
Thank you and welcome you all. I'm going to hop right into this. We know last year we started with the pandemic. Well, we started the year with Kobe Bryant dying, which was a painful experience for me. I know as I was connecting with Louie, we were talking to young people at your school around the time that Kobe died, and I know we had a significant conversation with them about loss. I don't want to share people's personal experiences on here, but I do want to actually ask some questions of you all of how we can deal with the transitions this year, even with the unknowns, and hopefully you all could learn from one another and also help us learn from you. So, parents right now, right? I don't know if any of you are parents, but none of you are parents. I'm the only one on here. So this question that I have actually came from Lori Smith. She's a frequent viewer of our program and a supporter of MBKCares. And she actually posed a question about how can others in the community support parents who are trying to juggle their own jobs plus having kids at home doing school. Does anyone want to speak to that? How can others in the community support parents who are trying to juggle their own jobs plus having kids at home doing school? Any advice?
My dad, he tries to balance between work and like seeing his kids and like spending time with his kids. So he's helping his brother with his daughter right now, my cousin. She's with us right now to like get through the school year and like become a better student and stuff like that.
Maya, we had you on last year, like last school year, and I remember you were talking about some really interesting things that you were doing in order to deal with your own mental health. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes.
It was
I do.
special. If anyone doesn't know, Maya's dad, Lamar Dixon, he's an executive board member of MBKCares, and he's also one of my best friends. But he was learning on the go. And Maya, he told me some significant things that you were doing in order to make sure you were taking care of yourself. Do you mind sharing the things that you were doing that were helping you to get through the trying times of the early stages of the pandemic?
Yes, well, I was like, in the beginning, I was stressed and a little bit depressed at the time. So what I did was I was making sure I cleaned my room and I drank water and I went on walks and I meditated and did a little bit of yoga just to make sure to like stay positive and get myself back up.
That's dope. And Louie, I know everything she just said was right up your alley, brother.
Definitely. I'm like the biggest promoter of drinking water, so I love hearing that.
Well, everything she just said were some things that are self-care. Louie, like what kind of things would you suggest, like being a therapist, you do therapy with the students at Washington High School. What kind of things would you like to add to the things that Maya just said, or are those things enough?
No, I think those are really important. Like healthy habits that we can all do to take care of ourselves is so important. The other thing is that in isolation, loneliness is a real problem. And so I think like trying to build relationships with, I guess we're all home, so we can maybe, Maya, you now have dad there all the time, so you can, focus on that relationship. It's so important. And I think that was one of the hardest things about isolation. And I think what you said right there, like creating space now, work and home are the same for many people, not for everybody. But so it's just trying to make sure that that space is a place where, you feel calm, relaxed, and that, you can separate as well from work. Maybe I do my schoolwork over here. I talk to my students about, creating this little room of yours and making a desk here and then shutting the computer off when it's over, getting outside and doing those types of things. So definitely.
Yeah. And like I also, I got this from my dad. I sit in the bathroom, like on the floor, and I just listen to the shower water. It helps me like calm down and stuff like that. And when the pandemic started, my room, it was dirty, so I had to clean it up just to like get a fresh restart. And I also read.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Serita, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I think that what everyone shared is so critical. Unfortunately, I deal with students, college-age students, whose homes are a really big trigger. And so a lot of times we make the assumption that students are living in a bedroom by themselves, or there is enough space in the home that people can kind of parse themselves out. And so unfortunately, a lot of our students are not in those home environments. And so what I spend time is thinking about, for those students who don't have the ideal or perfect home situation, how can they effectively deal with schooling at home during this pandemic? And it's very, very difficult. I don't think that there's any easy solutions. I think that trying to do some of the things that Maya suggested and Louie suggested are essential. It's also, the opportunities that I do get to talk to families, talking to them about how it's so important to create those safe spaces, those calm spaces for students who, again, are not living in the best home environments that are conducive to learning. And I do think that on the flip side of that, teachers, because, I'm an instructor in the public health program, have to be able to provide flexibility in how students learn and what that looks like to account for students who don't have the perfect home situation.
I think you raise a really good point, Serita. That's one of the things that we're really focused on at a district level, is really just helping students feel comfortable at home. So one of the expectations or one of the requirements that we really had.
Ken, you went mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Part of virtual world, right? One of the things that we were combating is the having your camera on while in class. Sometimes, you know, students don't want to show what's going on in their homes and things like that. So when Dr. Height announced that, you know, we wouldn't require that, was a really good thing for districts that are requiring cameras to be on. I've ran into a lot of good resources as far as like virtual backdrops and things of that nature, standard backdrops to combat that. I think it's really important for us to really start building relationships with families. It's like educators can't do it alone and parents can't do it alone. We all have to unite and, you know, do this together. That's going to be really important this school year.
I totally agree with that.
So on the college level, we have, like, Ken, first of all, really love what you just said, and I know that that's what your heart is. So I'm really grateful that the school district has somebody like you on their team. It's just the connection that we made, MBKCares and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We met with you last year, and I recall you having like a room full of climate managers at Morton McMichael School, and you got us together just to discuss ways that we could care for those kids in a particular way and also take care of the adults who had to be responsible. So I really think that you have a holistic view of how we all are family, we're all human, and that we all need each other in order to move forward. So I'm really grateful for you, man. Thank you for that heart.
Yeah.
Kiki, I believe you are the most recent college grad on our panel. So you graduated before the pandemic hit, or did you graduate
Yes.
this year? Okay.
I graduated 2019.
All right, you just missed it.
I just missed it, and thank God.
So for the people who are recent graduates right now, are you going to grad school or anything right now, or did you just finish grad school?
I finished grad school last year. I'm not going back to school anytime soon, if ever.
Okay. So the work that you're doing is more so to encourage people to take care of their mental health. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the work I would like to get into, ideally.
Okay.
I would like to get into like trauma prevention, helping people who are traumatized, helping with suicide prevention. This is my ideal future work.
So I heard about like some of the statistics about suicides going up during the pandemic, or suicide attempts, and I imagine depression is just on an all-time high. One of our panelists, Lori Smith, she also asked a question. She posed a thought and a question. She said, recent studies show that 1 in 4 youth have experienced suicidal ideation since the pandemic. As many now go into another school year isolated at home without the extracurricular activities, etc., how can we provide them with the mental health support that they need in this time? Would you like to address that?
Yes, I would like to address that. I think this can be handled in multiple ways. The ideal basically to have virtual therapists be more of a thing, but due to the online instructor not being great, that may not be possible. I would probably also say to check-ins, make sure that students are talking with friends, talking with family via virtually or in person, making sure they're not like completely isolated. If a student can't be with their family for a variety of reasons, where their home life is not that great, or they're an international student, make sure they have someone that they can talk to and confide in, a friend, a family member that they are able to talk to and trust, a therapist, anyone. Being isolated will definitely, over time, will do not so great things to your head. So making sure that people are not like completely isolated is definitely key.
Okay. Thank you. Louie, you have you have the task or the responsibility, the gift of being able to connect with young people. Would you like to address that same thing?
Yeah, sure. I think like it just goes to show the importance of getting social workers and more counselors into our schools. That's a really hard number to hear, but it's not completely surprising. So I work for something called the STEP program. It's putting therapists, social workers, case managers in schools. It's a partnership with the school district, the mayor's office, and CBH, that's Community Behavioral Health. So we're in like 60 schools, I think, this year. And so like in terms of virtually, I think Kiki said it right. Like it's check-ins as much as we can. Outreach, we've been calling, and that'll continue. And when we can, do well visits that are safe and outside. And then we can, do some virtual teletherapy as well. So I think that, so if 1 in 4 students are feeling that way, one of the questions I always ask is, how do we get that information? And then how does it get to someone who can help? So I think it's like really important for schools to be responsive to whether it's parents and community, students, if teachers here are concerned, creating systems that are easy to use, meet them where they are. So maybe if it's for students, it's through Instagram, it's through Google Classroom. And then for teachers, just an easy way to, if you think something's up, just let us know. And so I think it's a lot of importance on the schools to come up with, with responsive systems to help.
Serita, I actually want to ask you, speaking about what Louie just was talking about, he was talking about it from a high school standpoint, or I guess just undergrad, right? Well, on the college campus, are there resources there in the type of work that you're doing? Are you providing that as well, that type of support?
Absolutely. So most universities have what they call a behavioral intervention team. Basically it's a team that comprises of members in of the university who come together to discuss how to best support students who are having some issues, whether it's academic issues, it could be emotional, behavioral issues. And so at the university that I work at, we have one of those teams, and it's called our Students of Concern team. And what happens is that people can, anyone within the university can file a Student of Concern report. That information gets fed back to my office and then the team to discuss how we can best support that student. And so, yes, there are systems in place. There should be systems in place at all institutions to be able to identify students who are having issues, who are in distress, and then figuring out the best resources to support that student. At all universities, or it should be at all universities, have a counseling center. A lot of universities have peer support groups that students can tap into. And so it's really, it's really, in my opinion, not only having the system to identify students, but also creating a environment where we really kind of reduce the stigma around mental health and mental wellness. I often say it's about creating a culture of mental wellness on our campus, and so that our students are comfortable accessing the services that are available to them, because that's one of the major issues, is that a lot of times students are not comfortable for a host of reasons. So how do we, as a school, as an institution, really begin to break down that stigma that's associated with mental health?
And you found that to be a successful journey to try to find those things?
Yeah, I mean, I can say that I feel like the institution that I work at has done a really good job of trying to do that. I think that you have to be intentional with it. And as Kenneth shared, it's really about organizations putting in the resource and making that investment to do some of those things to really support students in that way, because without the investment, it's going to be difficult to achieve. But I do think that we know that, at least from the statistics that you cited, as well as what we already know, we have more and more students who are coming into the higher education space with pre-existing mental health issues and challenges. And sometimes, and so really it's about, bridging that gap sometimes from high school to college. So students were accessing support services in high school, making sure our freshmen, as well as our upperclassmen, but our freshmen are aware of all the resources that can continue to support them at college.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I know when you and I connected, we met through a mutual friend, Jack Drummond, and he connected us, and we were starting to have a discussion about partnering with LaSalle University through MBKCares in LaSalle to address these very things, to bring some, I believe we were talking about bringing art therapy or like some creative arts content there to try to connect on a personal level with young people. And I still look forward to that. It's a lot of planning that started right before this pandemic hit our planet. So I'm just grateful that the systems are there and that the ideas are there, because when people need it, it's like a book bag. My therapist has told me, she's told me things that I brought up in therapy sessions, right? On a Friday, that I may be like, well, I'm not dealing with that thought right now, but she's like, it's okay, just put it in your book bag. And it's like you're walking around with a backpack of things that you can pull from at different times. So the things that you're talking about creating a culture, you're teaching people where the fire alarms are, so that if there's a fire, they can pull that alarm. Or if they need an escape, they can pull this ladder down from the side of the building and get down. So you're teaching people what's there already so that they have an escape route that doesn't involve escaping life. But I appreciate you for that. And Ken, we also connected to talk about like the climate managers and everything, and something came from that conversation or that meeting you had last year. There was actually a death this year at not Morton McMichael, but at Hill Freeman, like right before the pandemic. And the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Philly chapter, and my organization, we're planning to go there actually on March 14th, I believe, which happened to be the same week that the whole world shut down. From your interaction or from your knowledge, do you know if there's certain things that are put into place also in the school district to try to make sure that people have resources or phone numbers, whatever they need if somebody's on code red, not just to deal with suicide, but also if somebody's just struggling and needs some encouragement? Do you know if there's any resources there?
Yeah, so one thing I want to say is that you guys hit it on the nail, especially with therapy. That's one of the things that we're moving towards, is just having students, listening to students' voices, right? And giving an opportunity for that. It's so important. When we really think about it, not only did this year start off with Kobe passing, then we have we're basically in a race war that could play on your mental, and then as well as the pandemic and people dying, and it's a lot. It's really heavy, really heavy stuff, and students need to have an opportunity to voice how they feel. There was actually another incident in addition to what you're talking about that actually happened in my network, where a student had passed away as well. One of the things that we're working on right now, and actually is up and running, is a Healing Together initiative. That started this summer by our deputy chief. She's awesome, phenomenal. She's really pushed the social emotional learning aspect. So the Healing Together targets social emotional learning, mental health and trauma, relationships and community, and also adult wellness, because we know that traumatic stress can definitely be secondhand, right? So teachers can also feel what students are going through as well. So all of this to say that we're definitely focusing on social emotional awareness and learning. Teachers are now going to be doing community meetings each day, just to get a check-in, a temperature check of how students are feeling, what they may be going through. I know that for the past couple of years in this position, doing restorative circles with students, a lot of times I actually was just watching the RNC last night, and they were saying restorative justice was pretty much baloney, and I just laughed at that, because restorative justice really allows students to share what they're going through and get that, be able to vent and get their emotions out. And we all know that that is needed at this time. So teachers are going to be giving, facilitating community meetings. Climate managers are going to be doing virtual town halls. So there's a lot of opportunity for our students to, receive that additional, that additional support around their mental health, which is awesome.
That is awesome, man. Like, to hear that there's resources, our organization, we sought to find solutions, but to know that some already exist, it's encouraging, because that's another ball or a wheel that we don't have to create. We can get behind it. And if there's anything that we could do, our organization or any of the other people that I'm connected to, if there's anything we could do to provide manpower or resources or just a voice, I would love to be involved with that. And you said that's called Healing.
The initiative is called Healing Together.
Okay.
So we just rolled that out this summer. So it's in full effect. We're looking to start that on the first step. And I'll definitely keep in contact with you as well.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, we do have someone in each network. It's called a prevention and interventionist, that they deal with tier 3 incidents. So students that need that extra love and support, that is their duty, that is their job, along with, like Louie said, the second step, the counselors, and every other. We have a lot of different people that are working on mental health this year. So
thank you.
Yep.
And Maya, there were some things that Ken, you have to call him Mr. Ken, okay? All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm just joking. But there are some things that he just brought up that it's hard to imagine what it's like right now to be a teenager in this climate, with the racial things that he described, or that we're all experiencing. Like, this world is just, it's a lot of things that are brought to the surface this year that were always there. You're 15 years old, you're going into 10th grade, and you're coming from the public school system in Philadelphia, or the Philadelphia school district. Were you in public school before in Philly? Or charter school? So you now find yourself in a different environment. What's the name of the school you're at now? I forget.
Cardinal O'Hara.
Cardinal O'Hara. So have you had a chance to actually meet your classmates virtually in any way, or are you just going into a fresh environment virtually when school starts?
I'm gonna be online.
Okay, but you haven't met any of them like through any online. Have they connected you all in any kind of way yet?
No, not yet. They just gave out our schedules, but they haven't told us like what students are gonna be in there or anything like that. But they did give us like what teachers we're gonna have and stuff like that. And they said for online, we can't do any sports or activities, but if you do go to school, you can do like all the activities and sports like that. But I'm doing online, so I think of it as a positive thing, because it gives me like a whole year to practice on basketball and get in shape and get ready for the next school year.
Maya has game, by the way. Maya can play ball. She's an athlete on a lot of. So Maya, I actually want to ask you a couple of questions and then transition to Kiki. So bringing up the idea of how race is impacting things right now, it always impacts us in some way or another, even if it's not something catastrophic. It still plays in the way decisions are made, the way that life is just navigated. I want to ask you, are you able, like right now, how do you feel about everything that's going on right now? And are you able to still focus on your ideas for your future, for your education, even with everything that's going on that you see every single day on the news or that you hear? Are you okay?
Yes, but in the beginning, like once the George Floyd stuff started happening, I couldn't really sleep like after the video. So then it made me want to start like a website for anybody like to speak about their feelings of the Black Lives Matter and how they feel about Black people and stuff like that. So I'm still doing like a website for that, still getting it ready.
You have to
But
do
it is hard.
Yeah. So what do you do? Like, I know you mentioned things you're doing to take care of your mental health. Have you been doing those things even more so because of everything that's going on with the racial uprising as well?
I'm doing it less because I haven't really, cause like I'm with my cousin, I work out with her, or I'm with my dad and I walk with him in the mornings. So that actually does help just to keep me productive and active and stuff like that. Or I read and it helps like just to get my mind in motion and my brain to stay in motion.
I'm glad to hear that. That actually, like, know some of the things that are brought up are also about like incarceration, and the things that you just talked about are ways that people who are incarcerated actually escape the walls by freeing their mind through reading and not allowing. There's a saying that you can trap my body, you can't trap my mind. So a lot of the things that are going on right now in this world, in a lot of ways, are like imprisonment. They're trying to trap the negative things, ideas, the spirits, whatever. They're trying to attack our positivity and trying to keep us from having hope. So it's really, really good to hear from you being a 15-year-old, a student, and your dad's daughter. You're destined for greatness.
Thank you. And I also try to like write my feelings too, just to like get them all out. Even if I don't want to talk to anyone, I just try to write. Or I do talk to my dad a lot too,
You
just to
journal?
help me out.
You journal your thoughts and feelings?
Yes.
Good. Kiki,
Yes.
what are some things that you do to take care of yourself right now? Like, and are these things that are going on in the country, are they impacting the way that you see your work?
Honestly, I find it just hard for me to focus or honestly care about anything these days because what's the point? I don't think I have a future at the rate this is going. I don't think things are going to change. I don't think anything is going to get better because I I don't think anything's going to get better, but I also do see like a small kernel of hope that maybe, just maybe, that people will for once get that Black lives actually matter. In the meantime, the only thing I can do right now, since I'm so cooped up in this house and I'm looking for jobs, is to take care of my own mental health. I try to write, I play video games with friends, I go on Discord a lot. Those are the three main things I do. I don't do those things as often as I should. I also like take walks in the house since it's too hot for me to go outside and walk. 10 dozen steps a day, baby.
I appreciate
I'm
you.
also Yes, I'm also trying just to keep myself motivated, less depressed. It's definitely hard. It's very easy to go into a hateful, nihilistic thing, but people actually protesting, actually caring is what gives me some hope that we can get through this and we can rebel against the system. Black Lives Matter now, forever, and always, and never forget it.
Thank you, Kiki. I want to, what you just said is really important. Like, it is, you're the solution. So you actually are going to create it. You're still very young and you have an opportunity to you have an opportunity to speak truth to power, but you also have an opportunity to change the things that upset you. Those are your motivations to be able to create the change that you want to see in the world. So whatever process that you're in or part of the process you're in, I encourage you to see it through. I'm going to share something before I move on to Louie. Yesterday, I was practicing some self-care myself, and I have a routine where I like to go for walks down by Kelly Drive. I find being near the water, I'm not turning the shower on like Maya was sitting in the bathroom, but I do realize that being near the water does have like a calming impact on me. So as I was near the water, instead of going for a walk, I went for a bike ride. And this particular trail on Kelly Drive, it has like some really slim, narrow points where you're like zigzagging around joggers and other bikes and people who were just walking. But I saw it through to the end and I hit the Falls Bridge. And there was another guy on a bike and I asked him, hey, if I go to my left over there across this bridge, can I get back to the parking lot of the art museum? And he said, yeah, it's actually a pathway back there that's blocked off. And that pathway is called West River Drive. And that side of the drive, not only is it blocked off, it's a much wider, broad road for you to be on with other bikers, other joggers and stuff. And it's not better view, but it's a breathtaking view of the other side of Boathouse Road, where you're able to actually see the lit up side of Boathouse Road, the river, the sunset is just really beautiful. And I realized like being on the other side of the road offered a whole different perspective. And I say that to say that it also was a wider perspective. It was a wider path. So the narrow path that you may see where there's not any room to navigate, to move through, it's uncomfortable. If you get through it, when you get to the other side, there may be a bridge that actually leads to the wider path that has a more breathtaking view. And that's also something you can create. So I'm really encouraged just knowing that you are where you are, because where you're headed is going to be a beautiful place. And I know it is. You have frustrations that other people don't have. You're not talking about being frustrated because Fortnite won't work and you're trying to just play something. Like, you're actually frustrated about things that impact the quality of life of everyone. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next 5 to 10 years look like for you and for our nation. Brother Louie, we have people in here. Everyone's been talking about like their work and also how they've been taking care of themselves. You have the responsibility of helping other people take care of themselves. What do you do to take care of yourself? And also, are there any resources outside of just school that people can use, whether it be digitally or whatever, that they can carry with them personally?
Yeah, I mean, I guess on just a personal note, I try to sort of in any situation sort of see the glass half full instead of half empty. I kind of like basically what Maya said is like, we could focus on being isolated, but she talks about getting time to work out and be with her dad and all that kind of thing. So I really think it's important to try to see, as much as we can, try to find positives and make meaning out of that. I think like personally, I do practice some meditation like Maya, and that is something I think can be really, really powerful in working with, if you're going to do therapy. I think meditation can work with therapy. It is not therapy. I think there's a role for therapy and a role for meditation. But I think that in terms of meditation, there are some great resources out there. There's a lot of apps now, the Calm app and Headspace. I know it's free for educators. I'm not sure for students or not. Maybe Kenneth knows more about that. But the one I've recently found one called the Healthy Minds app. And that actually sort of takes you through the process, how to meditate, and gives you some exercises. That was done through research. So that was done through research at the University of Wisconsin. So those are, doctors who are studying not just meditation, but specifically what type of exercises you can do in meditation that can either help you with compassion or help you with attention. I think you can kind of take it for what you need, whatever you're trying to work on. So I definitely think meditation is important, but I always try to find, with my students, finding things that they like to do. I mean, for me in meditation, the great thing is just having time where you're not, you're just letting your sort of mind relax. And I think, Maya talked about meditation, but she also talks about journaling, and talking to people, talking to dads, again, relationships. So that's a little bit of what I do and what I try to work on with the students.
You said the Calm app and
yeah, there's Calm app, there's Headspace, but the one that I've been interested in is the Healthy Minds app, only because it really sort of takes you from the beginning of, you've never meditated before and you want to learn more about it, and it really has the research behind it. So I've been sort of interested in that one, and it's free. You can give a donation, but it's completely free.
Is that for adults and children? Like, would young people be able to benefit from it?
Yeah, I think young people certainly would be able to benefit from it. Most definitely. I'm not sure. You kind of you take a survey in the beginning, and they sort of tailor it to your needs.
Okay, I'm going to put that out here for our audience as well. But I really appreciate that. It sounds like a great idea. Maya.
To piggyback off Mr. Louie, I also use the Calm app with my dad. I'm a beginner, and I think it's great for beginners. It helps me lock in and get focused and get whatever I need to get done to push through during the day or the night to help you sleep.
Yeah, I think it's the Calm app. I was working with a student last year. He's a basketball player, and I think it was the Calm app has LeBron James has a meditation series in that. So so it's pretty cool.
That's when we started using it. That's when my dad put me and my brother on.
Maybe the Sixers could use that since they just got.
Oh,
don't
joke about them right now.
I wasn't joking.
Not right now. Not right now.
I'm sorry.
My language.
All right. Another reason to need some therapy, right? The Sixers just got swept in a year when we thought they were going to. Well, that's another thought. So I actually want to pose some questions that were sent to us from some supporters and also from someone who's on live right now. So I'm going to ask this question to you, Maya, while you're here. I want to ask you two questions and let you elaborate on both. And then I'm going to pass the other questions on to the rest of our guests from the online audience. So what can teachers do to support your needs during this time? Just answer
they can.
Okay.
They can do a balance of like work and support because like having a flexible schedule, because some students, they might not be able to like have Wi-Fi, or they have abusive parents, or they also, I heard like somebody said they don't want to show their background. So I think they can be supportive on that. And also some kids might not be able to get on to like the Zoom like at the right time. So I think they should be like supportive and understanding of that too, because of what the kids go through at home.
That's beautiful. And what are some of the negatives that you encountered last spring, some of the positives, and how are you able to turn negatives into some positive situations?
Well, my friend, she was in ninth grade. She was about to repeat ninth grade. And because she was around like bad influencers and she had distractions, but then as the pandemic came around, she started becoming a better student and started getting locked in and working harder. So I think that's a positive outcome for the pandemic. Yeah, because she's working. And a negative thing is like some kids, they might not be able to focus. Like if they do online, they might not be able to focus because they like it better in a school environment, or as I said before, like no technology or Wi-Fi. So that can be a negative. But then like if the teachers, as I said before, if the teachers understand their students and become supportive, then I think it'll all work out good.
Thank you for that. Actually, Serita, I want to ask you a question now. I want to ask you your own question. Those two questions also want to give credit. Those were from Shannon Bertini. She's a teacher, and she contributed those questions to us. She's a teacher at a program called Crossroads, and I believe it's to be able to help people catch up from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade to get to the point where they can position themselves for their high school diploma. So thank you, Shannon, for that. Also, thank you, Lori, for the questions that you posed. Okay, Serita, this question is actually from Nikki Grant. Nikki contributed a question, and she asked you to imagine speaking to yourself when you first started out in your current profession, knowing what you know now. What is a piece of advice that you would give not only to yourself, but to a student struggling mentally?
So starting out in my profession, what piece of advice I would give?
To yourself.
Like thinking about?
Yeah, or to someone who's starting off down a similar journey.
I would say don't compare yourself. A lot of times we spend a lot of energy thinking about like how other people have gotten to where they've gotten, right? And so one of the things that I always say is like stay in your lane. Like stay in your lane. Don't compare yourself. Your path is your path. Because I'm in public health. I teach public health. Consider myself a public health practitioner, public health is such a broad field. And a lot of times I have students who, are very stressed about where do I go, and I don't know what to do, and just a lot of anxiety about that. And I say, you know what, your path is your path. Figure out what you like to do, what skills you want to enhance, and it will work out. You definitely have to be thoughtful about where you want to go, but you can get to the same destination many ways. And so I would tell my younger self that. I will tell myself also that you have to be your biggest advocate. A lot of times, I find a lot of students, and I guess I'm talking this way because I'm teaching a public health practice class this semester, and we're talking about professional development and all that stuff. But a lot of times we wait for others to take an interest in us, or we don't invest in our own development. So you might be at a workplace and your boss is never going to say, hey, I think you would benefit from this workshop or this convention. But you have to be like, you know what, I think I will benefit from this workshop or this convention or whatever, and try to make that happen for yourself. Because unfortunately, not to be pessimistic, sometimes you have great employers or mentors. Sometimes you don't. And sometimes they're not as invested in your development as maybe you would like them to be. So you always have to be invested in you. So those are the two pieces. And just don't have fun. It's going to work out. It's going to work out.
Kenneth, what would you want to tell yourself or somebody on a similar journey?
So again, Serita hit it on the nose. But I would say the same thing, invest in yourself. We spend we can spend so much time worrying about what other people think and investing in other people at a young age. We want to fit the mold so bad, and time just flies by. So invest in yourself, enjoy life. That's something that my granddad always told me, enjoy life. My mom always told me to stay in my lane as well. I know it took me a while to graduate undergrad, right? For whatever reasons we won't get into. But I was so upset. I'm like, oh my God, all my friends are graduating, they're getting good jobs, they're doing this, they're doing that. And then some of the people that, sometimes I'll just look back and I'll be like, I'm like, wow, I stayed in my lane, and I'm happy with what I'm doing at this point. So I've been investing in myself. It's just been, I'm at a place where I feel good, right? Another thing is just speak up. We're all human. We all struggle with some capacity of our mental health, right? I don't think I know one person that's never been depressed or upset or felt down about something. So we've all struggled. But it's about speaking up and being and understanding that you're not the only one. Something that you keep speaking of is therapy. I know in our community, me, myself, I struggled with a lot. I was a mess a few years ago, honestly. And one of the things I said I was going to do as an adult, as a Black man in this world at this point, is to invest in therapy. We all need it. It's important. I can't stress enough. I tell my friends, my family members, everyone, therapy. Get it off your chest. Get it out in the open, and really figure out positive ways and healthy ways to manage stress. With my job, I'm still in school. I'm in my doctoral program. It can be very stressful. So I've learned healthy ways in handling it. So as a young person, I just encourage anyone, And even if you, I know a lot of people say, well, access. A lot of people don't have access to therapists. We live in a digital world, right? Where we can just go on YouTube and find healthy ways to manage our mental. We can read a book, research, whatever. Just make sure you take care of yourself and put yourself first.
Yeah. Thank you for that. This actually is a transition I want to take to Louie to spin off what you just said. We had a question from our panel, from a Facebook viewer who's a supporter of MBKCares. I want to shout out James A. James is the co-founder of Yeah Philly, and they're doing incredible work networking young people together to be able to tackle issues that young people deal with. He's letting them speak their own truth in similar ways that Maya is doing tonight, but he's also building bridges between the police and the young people in the communities they're in. So I just wanted to set a background on who James is. James has a big heart for young people. He posed a question: do you feel virtual treatment is impactful? Is it culturally appropriate? Or is it just checking a box? Now, I know Kenneth just expressed some things, so I want to ask you, Louie, do you feel virtual treatment is impactful, and is it culturally appropriate?
I think it's, unfortunately, it's like what we have right now, and it's definitely not perfect. But like I said, I always try to see the benefits of it. One thing about doing therapy in a school is that if you've been into high school, if you're at a big high school, you know, like it is just a crazy environment. And so maybe I'll be in the middle of a session, then that, you know, that loud bell goes off. So like some of the students that we've been talking about, like I was able to do sort of more in-depth therapy sessions with students than maybe I would have in the school, because we're both sitting there at home, we're calm, there's no rushing to the next class. So I think that we do need to listen to the students, and if like you're saying, if the video isn't working, you could shut off the video. But yeah, it's just the best we have right now. And I just want to touch on the other question. I mean, like we were talking about self-care and balance. All those things are so important. And you know, it's starting off at a new position. I think it's like just so important that you'll get the skills, but like building relationships is first and foremost. I met you, Ihsan. You know, it just something you just have such a warm spirit, heart. And so just finding people that are doing good work and connecting with them, I really think is really important. And then focus on relationships. And then, you know, we were talking about the Sixers, just trust that process. You know, because like last year we were overwhelmed. So much of the year we had so many students that we were working with. But when the shutdown happened, we also had, you know, a huge list of students that we already had relationships with. I think in therapy, you know, therapy really, it's the relationship first with that therapist. Can you build that relationship first and foremost? That is the most important thing. So I think I am definitely, I don't have a great answer for this. You know, I'm struggling trying to figure out how I can make relationships with students. I'd like to hear maybe what Maya thinks about how, you know, because I think in a school, you know, schools are kind of crazy. And then my office is this calming place that students can come to. But how in the virtual world, I don't think it's the same. It's trying to getting on a you know, a Google meeting with me. It just feels, you know, it's hard. It's way harder. So that's something that I'm just sitting with, and, you know, and hopefully we'll find some ways to get through that.
I want to go, Kiki, I have a question for you, but while I have Louie on that topic, I want to address this between Maya and Louie, actually. So, Louie, I met you through Caitlin Boyle. She was the contact I had for Washington High School from the mayor's office of, is it community engagement, or I'm forgetting the exact name?
Community schools.
Okay. Caitlin actually posed a question, and she has a huge heart. So, Caitlin, I know you're out there. Thank you for connecting people. There's so many things. I'm going to go on a tangent and then actually connect this question. So we all play a part in being the change that we want to see in this world. And it's dope that you talked about having the heart, because what you realize is if you start doing the work, it's not as hard as it seems. Like half the battle is in the head. I used to watch this show called G.I. Joe, and it was saying knowing is half the battle. Like that was the theme song or the theme at the end of it. And it really is, because you could tell yourself, this is hard, I'm not going to be able to do it. But if you start doing it, you realize like a little effort, your feet start hitting the ground and you make progress. You make one step, you make another step. And regardless if you get to the goal, you'll get a lot closer than you were. And that doesn't only speak to our personal goals, that speaks to our holistic goals as a nation, as a world. We want to see racial harmony. This didn't just start. This mission started hundreds of years ago, and it's still going on. And we may not see it. I know Kiki mentioned not having the hope that things are going to change. That can become easy to do when you look back, and that can become easy to do when you look around. You got to look forward. And I'm not saying that to say that her thoughts aren't valid, because they are. I've been there weeks ago. I've been there at different times of the same day. But we have to realize that we play a part in moving this thing forward. And some things may never change. There may be a lot of people who always have hate in their heart. There may be people who always have disgusting behavior and ways that they treat people. But there's still going to be some people who can change their mind. And the only thing we can do is change our own mind and hopefully impact other people to change theirs. Not for the purpose of manipulation, but for the purpose of progress, to see people be better versions of themselves for their benefit, not for our own. Because if you want to see them be beneficial to themselves, then you're creating a better society. If it's just for you, you're just creating a different version of a slave. None of us are trying to create that. I want to pose this question that actually came up from Caitlin, from Maya. And she said, how do you think we as adults help students understand the benefits of meditation? And I want Louie to offer insight to this, because I think it connects to the therapy piece. So question again for you, Maya. How do you think we as adults help students understand the benefits of meditation?
So in the beginning, when I started meditation, I couldn't do it by myself. So like I recommend any adults or any siblings should do it with the kid who is starting to start meditation. But now I'm able to like be happy and be in the moment, and I won't have anxiety for the next semester of school. So it does help out to have somebody by your side when you do the meditation.
And Louie, I wanted you to connect to that question. Did you have anything you want to offer today?
Yeah. I mean, and I think make it relevant. We were talking about LeBron James, and make it relevant for students. Start small. It could be as simple as just taking a deep breath. A lot of students struggle with sleep, especially when they're stressed. So maybe focusing it on meditation for sleep, because meditation can be it can be sitting, but it can also be lying down. It could also be while you're taking a walk. So just trying to focus on little small things, because I think it's important that when somebody comes into like for therapy, I'm listening most of the time, and I offer little things. So it's not little bits to try to introduce people to the idea, but it's something that I think about a lot, is how can I could offer meditation, but how do I get students to get involved and be interested in it, is something I'm still kind of working on.
I have another thought. So my dad, he usually goes on walks on the weekends early in the morning. And recently I went on a walk with him. And so it was a good walk. Like we heard the birds and we listened, and we also did look out, but it was good. Like it's just like meditation. So it does help if you don't want to download like any apps or anything, that'll work too. Like just going on morning walks, because then you can hear like birds or anything actually. And we also go to a creek. It's called Drexel Creek, I think. And it's water, and the water is so calming when you just sit down and listen to it.
That is meditation, really. I mean, that's it.
So, Louie, I'm going to go to Kiki with a question, but I actually want to ask you, for the sake of our Facebook audience, and I hope somebody out there can type these comments or in our comments. The resources that you listed earlier were the Calming app and the Healthy Minds app. Is that correct?
Yep. The Calm app, there's some free resources on there, but the Healthy Minds app is completely free. That's the Calm app's good if you want to go like a meditation for sleep, or a meditation you can kind of find, or LeBron James got a lot of different stuff, but the Healthy Minds app is just to sort of like take you through what is meditation and how to do it. Basically, it's a how-to, and that's completely free.
Okay. And Kiki,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, actually, I know you mentioned about being home and like not being able to like you were just in like a space where you're trying to seek positivity. I want to know, like, have you been consuming a lot of media content at all? And how has the media contribute to any of the COVID-19 stress? Would you like to answer that?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in two segments. In terms of the media that I consume, it relaxes me, helps me feel de-stressed a
Okay.
little bit, gets me into a whole different world than this hell we're currently in until it's over and then I have to go back to reality. As for mass media, well, I'm not very confident with mass media right now with COVID-19 news. It's not great, to put it lightly. I still cannot believe that Trump suggested that injecting bleach into your veins as a cure for the for COVID-19. No, that would just outright kill you. So don't do that. Don't drink. Don't inject bleach into your veins, please.
Yeah. Say that again for the people in the back.
Don't inject bleach, please. Please don't do this.
All right.
It will kill you.
All right. So what are the types of media you said that you're consuming that are really good for you?
It's definitely mostly video games. I have been playing a lot more video games since this plague hit. And I used to play video games a lot when I was younger. I stopped doing it when I was in college for a variety of reasons, because I was just mostly just busy. And I lost a lot of interest in the games I used to love, but like I've just been going back to them. I've been playing new games. I have a variety of games on Steam that I have not touched, which I need to get to. So that's one. I have been trying to get into reading again, which is another hobby I used to do when I was younger. I have a lot of books on my shelf that are begging to be read, and same thing goes for my Kindle. I also been like trying to get back into anime too as well.
As a consumer of it or a creator of it?
Consumer
Okay.
of anime. I can't draw, unfortunately. I wish I could.
Okay. Are you writing?
Yes, I do write stories. I write fiction. Predominantly science fiction and fantasy. Been trying to like be more consistent with that because it's hard to write when you feel that everything you write is going to be garbage or going to be problematic in the worst way possible, and when everything around you is on fire. So I just need to get into the habit of writing consistently.
Okay. Yeah, I was having a conversation with one of the people who posed questions for us tonight. Her name's Shannon Bertoni. I mentioned that she's a teacher. She was actually telling me about one of her friends who wrote a book, and that book is now, he's a Philadelphia guy, and his book is now being used as part of the public school curriculum at his particular school, or somebody picked it up for their English class, and I thought that was pretty dope. So I just wanted to say, like, your own writing could wind up being somebody else's curriculum, and that's decent. And I believe, so I find, not in an arrogant way, I believe that I'm intelligent, right? I have an ability to think cognitively, but I struggle with reading a book. And it's not because I don't understand the words. At times I could be reading it as though I'm reading a dictionary. So I read each word, but don't grab the complete thought. And when I was having this conversation with Shannon, she made me realize that these people being brought into a story by one of their own peers or one of their own people from their city, one of their own citizens, brought them into the story where they were able to read it and comprehend the thought, not just read it as a list of words. And also the story was relevant to their own experience. It was something called Black and White. I can't recall the exact title, but I'll make sure I put that in the comments. But I thought that it was a really dope concept. And I say that because to connect with other shows we've had, one of the things that's a constant theme is unlearning things that we've been taught, unlearning negative behaviors, whether that be through therapy, through any type of walking, journaling, whatever. Just being on a mental health journey to get to the other side of through. What I realized, part of that is telling your own story and learning some truth that you've not been exposed to. I talked about the Hidden Figures movie a couple weeks ago. The Hidden Figures movie is a true story about Black women at NASA who were able to put together the systems, the formulas to get us into space. And that's something that we need to know about our stories. So I encourage everyone on here, everyone listening, whoever you are, tell your story, because your story connects with somebody in a particular way, even if it's one person. Your story holds weight. It holds weight when it comes to ministry, like that's your testimony, but it holds weight when it comes to just relating. It holds weight when it comes to a guy and a girl trying to connect in a personal way. Like it just holds weight in relationships with self and with other people. So tell yourself your story, tell God your story, tell other people your story. Just tell somebody your story, your complete truth, and be open to not judging yourself and judging others, and just realize how beautiful that truth is. I said that to you, Kiki, because I want you to write. You got books that are screaming your name. You also have books that are inside screaming, write me. Because I'm pretty sure some of the frustration or the things that you see in this world that cause you to be concerned, you can write some truth to those things and change your own thinking and somebody else's. And I'll lay that on the line. Like there's things that I've written that if I didn't start using the pen to write the first words, the rest of that paragraph wouldn't have gotten to that point. Just start creating. You are a creator. I know you are. I know you are, because if you're frustrated about things, that's just something inside of you just waiting to burst out. So let it out. Let it out in a positive way.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ihsan.
you.
I really do appreciate that.
I appreciate you, because I know like I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of the guest, people who are consuming this, right? There's truth in everything. There's truth in frustration. There's truth in hope. Like there's just truth in every angle that we're all coming from right now. So I don't want you to feel like you don't fit in here, or anybody else to feel like you don't fit in here. Positive and negative energy they exist in all of us. There's days when I did not feel like doing anything. That could be tomorrow. You never know. So it takes all of us encouraging and remembering certain things. And it's mostly the truth about ourselves and our identity. So I appreciate you for being honest about your identity. And I hope that you enjoy your video games. I used to like video games. Being a father now of kids who are addicted to Fortnite, I have a personal vendetta against video games right now. But I understand whatever outlet you need. That's just my struggle right now. So
There are plenty of more video games than Fortnite.
yeah.
Have you tried going down the indie hole? There are a lot of really good indie stuff on Steam.
I can't go down this conversation part. I'm sorry. I hate video games. And it's not
okay.
My kids have done that. My mom bought us every video game system as children. I had everything. I loved video games. But being a parent now has changed how I feel about them, because I'm trying to invest into them so much, and I realize I'm up against the game. I'm playing a real life game against a video game. And I feel like I am losing that job.
You're fighting against Fortnite.
Yes,
Fortnite is basically the silencer for all children these days, it seems.
it's kicking my behind. But I appreciate y'all. I thought it was also ironic how the rules for kids for many years was you can't have your phone in school, and now you have to use your phone for school. So I think that's really dope how things change. But technology is really progressive. It's really interesting right now, how we have to consume these things. I just thank you all for being part of this conversation tonight. Before we close out, I want to go around the room, around the panel, the Zoom room, the Facebook world, and I want to see if there's any final resources that you would like to say. I want to give everybody a chance to say your final thoughts. This is like Dr. Oz. So all of y'all got a chance right now to say your final thoughts and share detailed resources. Spell out how people can reach the resource. We have the COMAT. We have the Healing Minds. I'm sorry, Kenneth. I really feel like there's so much more I got to get out of you. I'm not done with you tonight. All right. So I want to, Kiki, could you share some resources that have been helpful for you and that you want to reach out to other people with? And then I'll go from Kiki to Louie, Maya, Serita, and then Kenneth, I'm going to end with you, and I actually want to ask you another question.
All right, so why I haven't used some of these resources, I can say I recommend the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
Okay.
That's definitely one. I would also recommend Black Therapy Girls. It is a therapy site that is catered toward Black women. So any Black women who need therapy, and I know I really need therapy. So Black Therapy Girls is also a good site. You can also start donating to I would say this is more of a generalized thing. Just start consuming Black artists, listening to their work, watching their stories, reading their books.
Okay.
Can't give anything recommendations on hand right now, but this is just more of a generalized thing.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
You said Black girls therapy?
Yeah, Black girls for therapy. Let me actually check to see how it's Black.
If you could share that in the chat box, I'll make sure that I get that out to our Facebook audience so that can be put out there for everyone.
Okay, so yeah, it's therapy for Black girls. So I'll just put that link there.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Louie?
Yeah, so I, a lot of the conversation has been like, what do we need to do to get back to normal? And I think what's clear is that normal is never good enough. And so, like, whether it's in schools or in our society, like, we need to make some big changes. We can't go back to school partially because of the pandemic, but also because the buildings are in terrible condition. They're not ventilated. We already had an asbestos and lead problem. Like, so I think, like, we need to, now is the time. We really need to keep pushing. And I think it's really exciting. I guess if I was going to share one resource, I think it's really exciting. The youth are really sort of stepping up and speaking out. As we were starting this panel, actually, there was another panel that was just Philly public school students. That was called Philly Youth Freedom Dreaming, and that was through Racial Justice Philly and Poppin'. So that I think that they recorded that as well. So that's available online, and you can really hear what they're saying. But I too often I hear Central Masterman. I'm really interested in, like, expanding the voice in all of the other public schools. So
Absolutely. We were going to have some guests on here tonight from somebody who was on that panel, but they told us the same thing. They were part of a Poppin' thing, and because their day was heavy, they didn't want to contribute to this, but they're going to be on a future discussion. So thank you for that, man. Maya?
Okay, so to anybody out there, be in the moment, enjoy nature, and read. And a lot of people think it's weird, but I also use ASMR for a resource to help with stress, and it calms me. And if you have anything to tell me, you can reach me at DTG Basketball.
Thank you, Maya. What was that thing you said you're using? AMSR?
ASMR. It's like on YouTube. It just soothes me and it calms me. It's another thing like meditation, but a lot of people think it's weird.
Okay, it works for you. It's not weird.
Yeah.
Serita, any resources or any final thoughts?
I guess some final thoughts. I know at one point in this conversation, you were talking about culturally kind of competent therapy. And I think that's so important. But what I will say to those who are seeking a therapist is that, like Louie said, it's about that relationship. And I often say that, selecting a therapist is like selecting a pair of shoes. Like, on the outside, those shoes might look really nice. They're cute, they're whatever. You try them on, it's not going to work. And so therapy is like that too, or selecting a therapist is like that too. Every person that you meet is not going to be necessarily the best fit for you. So if you do encounter a therapist for the first time and that doesn't work with you, that's okay. Move on to somebody else and kind of thinking about what are some of the qualities that you are looking for in a therapist, whether they're male or female, or somebody who particularly is working, or a Black therapist, or Latino therapist, whatever, kind of thinking about you and what would be the best therapist for you. The second thing that I would say, kind of putting on my instructor hat, is for students just to be open about where they are at with their teachers or instructors or whoever. To be honest and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that, because your teachers, your administrators at school or on a college campus are there to support you, and they can really be a resource to you to help connect you to services that are going to support you. And then keeping on my instructor hat for any people who are teaching K through 12 or, college, higher ed, be flexible. Really be flexible with learning. For me, I know Kenneth mentioned different, having people have different backgrounds. I'm cool with that. I do not care if, your cat is walking when we're on Zoom or if you need to go. So you really have to be flexible. And I ask for students to be flexible with their teachers because we're human. We go through things, we're stressed. And so we give you grace, you give us grace. And if we give each other grace, we'll be good.
Great point. I have the name of the book that I mentioned earlier. You just made me think of something. There's a book called Seeing Things in Black and White by Antoine Stroman. I haven't read the book, but I was told about this book and that it's going to be used by some Philadelphia public schools English teachers or literature teachers. Seeing Things in Black and White, Antoine K. Stroman, and it's available on Amazon. Just thought I'd share that resource since it was mentioned earlier. One of the contributors to tonight's discussion said that that's a friend of hers and he's a teacher as well. And he's a Philadelphia native. So, Kenneth, piggybacking actually off of what Serita just said, I want to pose a question that came from a viewer on Facebook. This is a question from Atia Jackson. She asked this for both of us. So I'm going to let you answer it and then I'll answer it. Question for Kenneth and Ihsan. The topic of therapy was brought up earlier, and I'm just wondering what advice can you give Black men that are currently participating in therapy now? I think many men say they are okay so often they begin to believe it. How can they unpack that they are not actually okay? Would you like to address that?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that you have to do in therapy is be brutally honest. It's very, very hard to unpack, different traumatic situations or things that are stressing you out, especially as a man, because we have all of these, especially for a Black man, because we have all of these things that we really have to be strong about. But it's important to understand that it's okay to feel weak. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be upset. I find that like my therapist is somebody that I am 100% with, because if I'm going to therapy, it's to get better. And I can't get better if I'm not telling the truth, right? Or if I'm afraid to talk to the person. So it's really about finding the right person that you feel comfortable with, I should say, to, share your story and kind of unpack that. And then it's really just being honest and truthful with yourself. We have so many social constructs that tells us that we have to be this way. And that's all it is socially constructed. So we really have to just be honest with ourselves and be honest with the people that we're working with, I would say.
Thank you, Ken. And I definitely agree with those comments, man. I see a therapist, and I don't know if everyone's aware. Some people may be in this panel not actually aware of my journey. I lost a little brother to suicide, which was the engine, or my journey to mental health wellness was the engine that motivated this becoming an organization. My brother's Keeper Cares was actually started in memory of my younger brother, Atif. That's his image on the back right there. He died 13 years ago from this week, actually. He died August 31st, 2007. So I've learned things that I never imagined learning. I didn't think about suicide when I was a young man. I never thought about therapy. Actually, I got introduced to the idea of therapy, but not for like these types of things. At one time, I borrowed my mentor's car without his permission. Lamar, Maya, your dad was with me. I borrowed his car and I got into a car accident while he was out of town. And I wound up learning about therapy then because he suggested that I see a therapist for taking his car. And I wanted to see a banker because I had to pay for that. I had to financially pay for his car to get fixed. But therapy came to to my life then, but I didn't actually go through it, didn't understand it in a certain way, because therapy is not punishment. And my first understanding of therapy was there's something wrong with you that needs to be dealt with. There are things that are going on with us, but it's not punishment. There was a panelist we had on here recently on a discussion about grief who said a thought that one of my mentors said. I had a mentor named Shelly Williams who died from cancer. God bless her soul. She died from cancer last year, and she was an advocate for suicide prevention through her organization, Lifesavers University. And Shelly always said, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And she wants you to think about it that way, because when you think about what happened to you, you can share that truth with yourself. You can share that truth with others, not from a standpoint of shame, but I'm seeing a doctor and I need you to know, listen, I got shot. I need you to deal with this wound right here. I fell down steps. I need you to help me get back up. Like, those are things that it's metaphorically dealing with, but there are some things that have happened to us that are traumatically impacting the way we think and the way we process life. Therapy helps with that. And the stigma of therapy, particularly in the Black community, it runs up against faith. It runs up against masculinity. It runs up against all kinds of social factors and economic factors. Some people can't actually afford therapy, or they don't understand that they can. There's resources through our jobs called the EAP program. You can see a therapist for free for a few visits before you actually decide if I want to go forward. Then you have access through your health insurance where you can see a therapist for a copay, sometimes $20, $25, $30, to alleviate the cost of hundreds of dollars to see a therapist. Then there's free therapy through an organization called Black Men Heal, who is a nonprofit organization that uses donations from others to provide resources for people. Kenneth, you were about to say something?
Yeah, and I was just gonna piggyback off of that, because I just want everyone to be aware, but it's also resources at you're attending a university. That's where I started, honestly. I started at St. Joe's, and for free. So your tuition also, covers that and allows you to see a counselor or a therapist as well.
Thank you, man. So the resources are there. Just knowing that they're there is important. And I think that this type of discussion, hopefully it goes beyond just education. We have a panel called Back to School, and the primary meat of what we talked about tonight was about mental health. And I think that's beautiful. One, because our organization, our goal is to bring impactful things that can increase people's mental health, but also it's just dope that we have students, administrators, therapists, everyone talking about how are we all alike. We're all alike in the fact that we're human. We're all alike in the fact that we all struggle, that we strive, and that we fall short, and that we succeed. Like, we all constantly are on this battle to move forward every single day. And it takes all of us to do that. So I'm appreciative of your testimonies. That's a church word. I'm appreciative of your stories, your backgrounds, your input, your influence. The final thought I'm going to share was to finish answering that question from Atia. For me, therapy was going against my own ideas of what I thought my therapist needed to look like. I had 3 therapists in like the last 10 years. I had a Black man therapist, Dr. Randolph Walters, excellent therapist. He helped me through some significant trauma when my brother first died, and as I was going through a breakup. Then I had a therapist a few years ago by the name of Leslie Glass, excellent therapist. I'm saying their names because these are still excellent people who others can probably benefit from connecting with. I stopped going to those therapists. One was a financial reason. I couldn't pay for Dr. Walters because he didn't accept my insurance. And that's a systemic piece too. There's rules that there's red tape that keeps certain therapists from being able to accept your insurance, and then you have to pay your out of pocket in full, which makes it difficult to reach what you need. So I highly recommend that we not only change things on our stigma, but on a systemic vantage point, things get changed too, so that we have access to who can help us. But then I got to a real bad point on October 16, 2018, where I had a plan to take my life. And this is someone who's an advocate for suicide prevention, mental health awareness, and I had a plan to take my life. And the aftermath of that had me searching for a therapist. I was looking for a Black man therapist, and I connected with a white woman. And she's been my therapist now for the last year and 10 months. And she's excellent. And I can't say enough about how stereotypes inside may have you missing out on the opportunities of connection. It's the same with interracial relationships. You can't just think a certain way about a person, whether it's Black to white or white to Black, whatever, male to female, whatever. We have to not judge, and also just put ourselves in an open point of view where, like Kenneth said, if I'm honest, I will move forward. And I realized I had to be more honest. And as I was being honest in therapy, layers of the onion just kept unpeeling, and they're still unpeeling. They're still coming off. They're still coming off, because as they started coming off, I realized that it wasn't just heartache I was dealing with. I was dealing with a gambling addiction. I was dealing with rejection or issues that had to do with family trauma that was unresolved or that I didn't even see was there. I realized that falling off a bike when I was a kid played a part in some of the things, whether it be a concussion that I never got diagnosed for, or just the fear of moving forward in a particular way from an experience that I didn't realize was playing and manifesting itself in my life. Therapy peels those onions back, and it allows you to have space in your head to see different. I went to this mural, and this is my last point. I went to this mural last week, and as I was sitting at the mural, I was introducing someone to the mural, and while they were looking at it, they were like, this is a beautiful part, but it was just part of the mural. So to back up from it, you get to see how does this piece of the mural fit into the grand scheme of everything that's being seen there. When you are going through trauma in life, it's like you're up close and you can't see the whole picture. Therapy helps you to take a step back to see the whole picture, to see how does this breakup play into the whole course of my life? How does this F on this test play into the grand scheme of my life? It makes no sense for people who have gotten to the point of attending University of Penn to get an F on a test and jump off a building. It makes no sense. That's looking at the thing way too close to realize, like, to see this is not my whole life. This is a moment. This is a failure that can become something progressive for me if I flip it in that way, or allow time and the processes of life to play their course. I encourage everyone, get down the narrow road to the other side of it and witness the beauty in your life. Right now, it may be constrictive. It may be painful as you're going into a school year with uncertainty if it's going to look like last school year. Get through it. You will. You will. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, you will get through it. If you fail, that's fine. You're alive. As long as you're alive, you have a chance to set the narrative for your own life. You have a chance to love on people. You have an opportunity to receive love. I thank everyone again for participating in Wellness Wednesday. This has been an excellent discussion. I appreciate my panel, Kiki, Louie, Kenneth, Maya, and Serita. You all have been excellent. To our Facebook audience, our YouTube audience, our Zoom audience, however you're consuming this content, we appreciate you. God sees you. We love you. We thank you for your support, your prayers over the years. And I ask you to say a special prayer. This is a request from my mother. This week will mark 13 years to the death of my younger brother. I ask you to say a prayer for my mother today, and also a prayer for the family of Tyreek Craig. Tyreek Craig was one of my closest friends, and he died this day 9 years ago from cancer. So rest in peace, Tyreek. Rest in peace to my brother Atif, and to everyone out there who's going through a struggle. Get to the other side. God sees it, and he hasn't forgotten you. Thank you for joining Wellness Wednesday. Have a peaceful night. We'll see you next week where we'll have a discussion about art therapy, and I'm so excited about that discussion as well. Have a peaceful night, everyone.
You too. Good night, everyone.
All right, y'all don't go anywhere just yet. So I stopped the recording there. All right. So we're not live.